So, on to the demo. From the first kind of look, it looks somewhat traditional in the sense of your resource panels on the left-hand side, your viewing panel in the middle, and then we have our notifications on the right-hand side. But where it differs is there's no predefined grid or quads or anything to populate. I can double-click a camera, and it launches it. I can click and drag a camera, and you can see this, the UI flexes as I open up cameras. We'll get rid of that non-16:9 camera, and I can make custom UI completely. This is completely scalable and flexible in terms of how I set up my layouts. One thing to note is I am sat in London on my Wi-Fi, and I'm connected to a remote site that's live in France, in Montpellier right now. So when I was talking about the speed of streaming and the usability of the system, right, like you can see now, my connection's quite good, so all my cameras are in high res. But what we do is we do something called adaptive scaling, where we take a low resolution and a high resolution stream from every camera, and it basically, based on how good your resources are, it will change between high and low resolution. So if you've got a gigabit backbone and you've got a kick-ass computer, everything's going to be high res. If you've either got network issues because you're streaming remotely, or you're just CPUs struggling to decode all the video, it will knock cameras down to low resolution, but it doesn't do all of them. It will do them one at a time until it finds a balance where it can basically deliver you as much high resolution as possible without compromising on the video continuity, so you're not getting lags and dropouts and things like that. So if I bring out more cameras, you'll see here, if I bring out a few more, at some point my network's going to saturate, and some of them have gone to low resolution now. So actually I'm doing pretty well. Most of them are in high resolution, except for this one has turned to low resolution to get me that balance that I need to get to. What's good about this is it also understands how you're using the system. So in times where you are getting frame drop or packet loss, it will always make sure the smaller cameras go down before the larger cameras on the screen. So therefore the cameras that need the resolution, vis-a-vis the larger ones on the screen, will always be in high res, and it will knock the smaller ones down that really don't need the resolution. So if I open up another row of cameras, let's say, I'm probably now going to saturate my network a bit more, and now you can see a lot of them drop down to low resolution, but this one has stayed in high resolution. So you can see there how quick it is to open up these video streams, how smooth the whole thing is. You don't have to manually change between low and high, it's all automated. And even though I'm only sat on a Core i5 laptop, just an Asus laptop, everything's smooth, fast, and remotely streaming to France, right? So in terms of going into playback, we have what we call a single UI approach. Where a lot of platforms out there, you have to switch to like a playback mode, or you have a live section, a playback section, and a settings section. Everything is done from this one interface. I have my timeline at the bottom. I can click at any point. All my cameras jump back to that point. You can see again, like stressing how quick the system is. I clicked and instantly all the archive footage came through. There's no loading time or buffer times or anything. If I'm looking for a specific date or time, the timeline's scrollable, or I can use my calendar. So on the 1st at 2 p.m. Now the timeline is 2 p.m. on the 1st of March, and I can just click 220. Now all my cameras are 220 on that day. So you can see the speed of being able to find your footage, and you can see how smooth the footage is coming through. If you look at this bottom left-hand corner, you can see the person moving around, and if I click that, it's going to scale up. It jumps to high res before you even realize it's jumped to high res, and the camera's smooth without any drops or lags. You can see the stuff in the background going on. It's very fast for streaming, especially considering this isn't a candid demo system that we've set up that's done in the perfect way. This is an actual live system of our customers in France. On top of that, if you're looking for exporting the footage, you find an event. Very simple as well. Click and drag, right click it. Sorry, my mouse is being funky. Click and drag, right click it, export, and then you get all your export options for that period of time. No start time, end times, all that kind of stuff. So you've got all your kind of standards. exports, MKVs, AVIs, MP4s, all that kind of stuff. And we also have a rapid review in terms of if you wanted to take a 24-hour period and take it as a 60-second video, so basically like a time lapse. We can export time-lapse style footage as well, so really good for like constructions and monitoring like buildings going up and stuff like that. All of it's watermarked, so you can bring it back into the system and check for continuity. And on top of that, we have a multi-video export that takes all the videos on the screen and it packages them down into a single exe that you can then launch on any computer. Still have all your layouts, still move around the timeline, change your views, all that kind of stuff, and you don't even have to have NX installed. On top of that, you can make it password protected to make sure if it's sensitive, if someone does get the file, they can't open it without the password, and you can make it read-only so you can't re-export from it in AVI or anything like that. So it's quite a lot of functionality there. On top of that, for articulating an event, we have kind of a different way to do things. So sometimes when sharing information can be quite difficult. So if I'm trying to give the information to somebody, rather than trying to upload a load of video and then write a really long email saying, hey, please check camera 1 at this time and look for the guy in the red hat. Now go to camera 2 at this time and find this, X, Y, and Z. And then the chances are he's not probably going to understand what I've written and have to call me anyway. We have a quick way of basically articulating an event. So we have a built-in screen record function, which you can see says stop screen recording right now, as I'm using it to do this. But you would click that. It would start recording your screen, your mouse, and your voice. And I can say, okay, down here is where, I don't know, the water bottle was that went missing, or whatever the event is. I can jump around the timeline, I can move around and do all different bits and pieces. And then I can save that down as a single AVI file. So here's one I did earlier, not inside the system. If I just minimize that, I can show you, there's a bunch on my desktop from all these demos that I do, and I can just drag that in, and you can see here, this is one I did earlier, and it's showing like an event of a guy that was potentially stealing and walking down the sideline there. So I can send that, it's 5 megabytes, I attach it to an email, I say, hi Bob, please see the attached, this is the event we were talking about, and instantly you can share that information. It takes about 5 minutes to do the whole process, rather than the time it takes to write an email, upload footage, the other person understanding that email. It's a lot faster. So for finding events, we have a few tools inside the system as well. So if I just grab a different camera here, one of my favourite examples for this. So this is the door to the warehouse on the right hand side here. So let's just say that I know a package went missing in the warehouse on the 1st. If I turn on motion detection, unfortunately it's quite busy because that door at the back left is the front door to the entire building, so it's constantly having people coming in and out. So I just want to see when there was motion by this warehouse door. So now I can draw a red box over it, and you can see there on the timeline instantly it cut down to about 10% of the motion zones. Now I can click at 9 o'clock and I can see, alright, I know who they are, jump to the next one, I know who he is, and I can keep jumping through these events until I find the event of someone leaving with a large package from the warehouse. And you can see how fast this is, like jumping through the footage and analysing that footage, especially considering it's remote from France, right? You can even see if I zoom out, I actually did a whole month and a half. If I redraw the box, you see less than a second to basically get all that data on the timeline and in the thumbnails on the right hand side. So it really makes searching a lot faster. You know, if you're in a car park and someone's car's been dinged, car parks have continuous motion pretty much. You draw a zone over where the car was, you find it in 5 minutes rather than a couple of hours. So it really makes the whole process of searching a lot faster. On top of that, we integrate with AI. So we don't do our own AI. We are focused on the BMS, and we find that AI has got very specific now in terms of how good you are. So there's not very many AI companies that are trying to do everything. People are focusing on facial recognition, or we work with one company that literally just does hands-up detection. That is all they do, and they are the best at it for banks and things like that, where there's concealed weapons and they need to know if there's a robbery in progress. So instead of us trying to do AI, we built a plugin system called the Meta SDK, and that integrates to such a level that from an end user's perspective, it feels like a single system rather than two disparate systems. And that's the main goal, is that the end user feels like it's all one system. So if I jump to my objects tab here, close this one down, you can see here the plugins I'm running. So we've got in-camera plugins like Hikvision or Dahua, or we work with Vivotech and those guys, and Bosch and stuff. And the plugin actually integrates with all the AI inside of a camera, and I'll show a better demo of that in a second. Or we have software-based ones like SecuriNet here. So these are all the things it can detect. I can select faces, and then it's going to load me all the faces that have been detected in the system. And I can double click it, and I can see that her face is there. It's unknown female, 24, that she's a female and not wearing a mask. And we put the boundary box over it. This is not burnt in, as you can see. It's overlaid in our platform, so when you export the video, none of the lines or anything are on it. It gives you all the functionality as if we're doing the facial recognition. So I can even say, like, I want to see when Guillaume was in the office, and that's going to show me all the times Guillaume was detected inside the system. These detection events are from the 18th of January, so they're actually outside of the archive date, so there's no footage of them anymore. But you can see how it's detected him, and I can search it. I can even search, I want to only see when Guillaume was over this back left-hand corner, and now it's only times Guillaume was in this back left-hand corner. So it really gets you intricate in terms of the forensic searching, and this works with anything, right? So we work with license plate recognition that also does car classification for colours, makes, models, and everything of the cars, and you can just type in blue Audi A3, and it'll show you all the blue Audi A3s. So it really lets you get intricate with it. On top of that, it's all alertable, so we can actually use our rules and events engine to alert off of those. So we can say analytic event, we can select the facial recognition event, and what do we want to do? Let's say when Guillaume comes in, or when a blacklisted face, a known problem maker comes in, what do you want to do? We can trigger PTZs, bookmarks, all those kind of things. A couple to draw our attention to. We can do speakers, so we can send an audio clip to an IP speaker. What's cool about it is we can have multiple audio clips, so you can have like a dwelling perimeter on the front door, for instance. If someone stood at the front door for longer than 60 seconds, it can trigger an audio file to say, please be aware you're under CCTV surveillance. But you could do that just between 5 PM and 9 AM. In business hours, 9 AM to 5 PM, you could send a different audio file if someone's detected dwelling, saying, please make sure you ring the intercom. So it allows you to get pretty customizable based on who's doing it, what time it is, and all those kind of things. On top of that, we have push notifications to the mobile, which is pretty unique among VMSs. It's not just a log or an email, it's actually a push notification. So if you've got the mobile app installed and one of these events goes off, it can actually pop up on your phone with a clip of the image, and then you can click it and it takes you through, and it can say, dwelling at door 1 or whatever it may be. What's cool about all these alerts is they can all be set up from health monitoring events as well. So you can see here all of our health monitoring events. That means that if you've got a system admin or anything like that, if a camera goes down, they can get a push notification straight away. If a server goes down, you can get a push notification, or you can send an email or any of those kind of things. So it's quite flexible in terms of how this engine can be used. There's lots of different things we can do. We can add soft triggers, which is buttons to cameras. So you can press a button and open up a gate. That button can only be available for certain users. Other users don't see it, only at certain times, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot we can go through here. In the thought of time, I won't take you through too much, but I can explain more if anyone wants a live demo. They just need to reach out to me. So one more, couple of pieces of AI will show you more. One that's really cool is there's a free one that we have. That was our kind of developer case to, we have it open sourced, so developers can use it to, search engine. So developers can use it to as a reference project for when they're making their own. This is just running person detection. So you can see it's detecting all the people. And I can drag that in and see that it's detecting the people. And I can even search, like, I just want to see when a person came over in this side, this blue box. Now it's only events where a person came inside that blue box. So if I select this, and you can see it's got the boundary box and everything. What's really cool about this is it's very easy to set up. It's called OpenVINO. It's an Intel pipeline that's free. I can right click the camera, go to camera settings. As I said, everything's done from pop-up windows, so very easy, not having to go to a whole different section of the software. If I go to plugin, OpenVINO, I can actually change all the settings. I want entrance, loitering, appearance, exit. I want to adjust the actual zone itself and all these kind of things, all from here. And I can add more zones, lines, etc. So very powerful, just a free plugin. And we have hundreds of different AI companies, like I said, hands-up detection, gun detection, license plate recognition, object classification. There's almost always a plugin for every project. So that's how the plugin systems work. To give you an example of how deeply they can integrate with a camera, I just want to show you one other system. This is our system in Taipei in Taiwan. And you can see here I have two VivoTech cameras. If I turn on the Objects tab, you'll actually see that it is it's very quiet, so I can't see anything right now. But it's actually, there you go, it's detecting the cars, it's detecting humans. It's 15 floors up, so it's not in the optimal position to have accuracy, but it gives you an idea of how well it's integrated. There's no other software involved in this. This is just NX and taking all the data from the VivoTech cameras that are sending us all this information. So I can search for humans in a specific area of the screen. You can see the line crossing event. So say if someone crosses a line, set off a siren, all this kind of stuff, all embedded in the camera. So I can right click that, go to camera settings, the same as my OpenVINO one, and I can actually adjust, like the line crossing, for instance. I can take that line and I can move it, and I'll save it there. And that's actually now pushed that setting to the camera itself, and now the line crossing inside the camera is set up there. So you don't even have to go to the camera to set all these settings up. It's very deeply integrated. And we try and do this with as many camera brands as we can, but it's very dependent on what the camera allows us to do. So let me jump back to my other system. So a couple of other kind of UI features I'll show you that are pretty cool. So for like looking around your system, one thing I'll mention obviously is in England now it's 10 to 11 at night, so that's why all the cameras are nighttime. It's because it's midnight in Paris, so we don't have as much movement as I'd like, but it's finding the time to do these things. So if I grab a couple of cameras out, we can break them out into multiple cameras. So let's say I want to monitor this gate here. Now that gate's a separate camera. And I want to monitor the big gate. Now that's a separate camera. And let's say I just monitor the pathway and down the side here to the left. So you can see I can basically break out this one camera into multiple cameras. So if you're covering big areas like 4K cameras, you can really like get a lot more kind of viewing capacity without having to like kind of squint or double click the camera all the time to see what's going on. But where this comes in really cool is if you're looking around the system, you know, making it more of a less about prevention and more less about recall, more about prevention. Like I said, if you're seeing something in more detail and you go in like this, you lose light view of all your other cameras. So if you're trying to follow someone or anything like that, we can actually drag this around and we can drag it camera to camera. So now I can actually have a magnifying glass into my entire system to see what's going on without having to keep jumping in and out of cameras and things. And it's a really smooth, really kind of like cool way of looking at the system. On top of that, we work with fisheye cameras a bit different. So if I grab the fisheye camera out, we don't take it dewarped from the camera. We take the one hemispheric and we use those same crop windows and they dewarp the camera on the fly. So I can, you know, if one person prefers one layout and another person prefers another layout, they can save their own layouts based on how they want them. Works in playback, works in live, and I can also move my camera around like a PTZ. If I still want to see a 360 but not feel like I'm looking down on everyone, I can still get my full 360. So pretty powerful in terms of how we can work with fisheye cameras. What's cool as well, it works with any fisheye camera. It could be a normal camera that you just stick a fisheye lens onto and it will still work. So it's pretty cool how we do the calibration of the de-warping. On top of that, the UI is pretty flexible. We can bring in any cameras. We can also bring in server monitoring. And we can even bring in web interfaces. So any Chrome interface can come into, or sorry, web interface can come into here. It's a built-in Chrome browser. And it's fully interactable. So you can see here we've got our graph showing our CPU and our hardware usage, so we can keep monitoring our hardware. And here I've just got our Network Optics website, and I can fully click on it and everything. What's cool about this is there's a JavaScript API that if you're building a custom web interface, like you want to show temperatures or wind control or something inside of a panel, you can actually have a JavaScript API that you click and it launches videos inside the UI, and you can change the timeline, all that kind of stuff. So it basically allows you to write completely custom UI modules and components for the system just using web languages. You don't need C++ or any kind of complex coding language. So it makes life a lot easier for doing those extensible and customized projects, right? So that's pretty cool. One thing I'll start talking about is the architecture of the system. It's a little bit unique. We don't have a central management server like a lot of the others. It's like an old school architecture from like the 90s, right? We use what's called a Hive architecture, where if you can see here, I've got 3 servers. They've all merged together and they're using database replication to communicate with each other, which means I can connect to the system using the IP address of any one of those servers, and it will give me the entire infrastructure, all the servers and all the cameras on the system. So it means you don't have to have like this one central point of potential failure that you always have to connect through, which is bad for stability and bad for network topology as well, because if that central server is not on your site, you have to connect to it, and it's just poor network management. So it's a lot more stable in the terms of if one of the servers fails and you put a new server in there, it heals its database off of the other servers because they've all got a full copy of the database. Even the cameras they're not recording, they'll still have all the cameras on there. So you literally don't have to do any settings. Also, if a camera fails on a server fails on a local site, all the cameras that are recording to that server will automatically jump to the other available servers, stay live, stay recording. When the server comes back up, it moves back across again. So it's built-in fault tolerance as well, just as a feature. Rather than having to plan for it with extra hardware and extra licensing and all of this, you literally just right-click the server settings, and just turn on failover. And now that, for instance, this server takes an extra 66 cameras on top of its load. So if this Linux server fails, the 4 cameras on it just automatically jump to this server here. So a very simple and easy failover built into the system. There's a lot of other functions and features to the Hive architecture, like it can route all servers that don't have internet connections through servers that have internet connections, all this kind of stuff. We can get into that more. If someone wants to know more, just reach out to me and I'll explain more. On top of that, we have a cloud layer. Cloud layer is just about connectivity at the moment. We will be releasing cloud storage at some point this year, but right now it's pure connectivity. And what it basically does is it uses NAT reversal to punch through the firewall, so you don't have to do any port forwarding. So when you install the system and you connect it to the cloud, it's straight away accessible via remote access, no port forwards or anything needed. No static IP addresses needed because it tracks your system. It also means that when you connect to the system, you don't need to know an IP address or anything. You just type in your email address and password, and it takes you straight to the system that you want to be at. It's also pretty good for our Hive architecture. So if you've got multiple sites around the country, rather than having a complex VPN network or a VLAN or something like that, you can connect each one of the servers to the cloud, and in the cloud you can merge all the servers together. So it can create that Hive architecture via our cloud to connect all the systems together as well. So it adds a whole bunch of functionality, and I'll show you what it looks like in terms of if I log out. If I log out of my cloud account, I lose access to all my systems except for the ones that are port forwarded. As soon as I log back in, I get access to all my systems again, and I can just click on any of the ones that I want to see. And you can see I've got quite a few offline at the moment. I've been shared a fair amount of systems in my time. Some of them probably don't exist anymore. So I'll just go back to the eCare one for now. So yeah, you can see how easy it is to jump in and out of systems and access them, and then share. When you share a new user, you just type in their email address, the user right they have in terms of you can create custom user roles and all that. And then our system will email them, tell them where to download the software, tell them to create their own password. It's got built-in password recovery mechanism, all these kind of things. So it's pretty powerful to make users less scared of using the system. And the more a user uses the system, the more value they see in the system. So the more likely they are to spend more money on it. So yeah, it's definitely a big advantage, making it more usable. A couple of other last things. There's a full reporting interface in the cloud as well. So if I just log into our cloud portal, this is really good for system maintenance and things like that. So if someone's complaining that their system's lagging or it's got problems, I can click on the information of the system and I can see all the errors. So storage is offline on one of the servers. It's inaccessible. Some of the cameras, it's been offline for 25 hours. I can also see errors and warnings. So this one, the camera has been offline once in the last hour. Or this server, for instance, has been offline twice in the last hour. But what's cool about it is it gives you a really good breakdown. You can see, even if there's not any issues, if I just jump to servers, I can jump onto here. Alright, so the CPU is running at 14%, we're using 12%. The RAM, I can see the decoding speed. I can see all the details of this server. So now I know if there's laggy video and I come on here and I see like this one here, I see my CPU is at 53%, but we're only using 7% of it. What's causing that, right? What on there is causing the CPU to have such high usage if we're not using it? So someone else has installed something on there, there's a bug on there, could be anything. Same with the cameras. You can check a camera warning, it's been offline once in the last hour. You can see the camera's primary resolution, secondary resolution, frame rates, average bit rate over the last 5 minutes. Same with the storage. We can see if our storage is saturated. It shows us our write and read rates. And the same with the network, our in and outs. So if there is any issues on a site, you can come here first and just see, the network's a bit saturated. So we need to either move some cameras or connect another network port to the back of the device and truncate the network. So in terms of when there is an issue, what's really cool as well is if it's a camera that you need to get access to the camera for, we can proxy the camera's webpage via our client as well. So even though these cameras are all on a network that has no internet, but they're going into one of the ports on the server, and then the other port on the server is connected to the internet, our server can proxy that camera's interface to you, which means for remote support, in conjunction with that information report that we just saw, it allows you to really get pretty good remote support without having to, VPN in or go to site to get access to the network. It gives you a lot of access and a lot of functionality. So on top of that, in terms of what we can install on, we're very lightweight. So it's a server client architecture. The server can install on pretty much anything. We can do 16 cameras on a Raspberry Pi. And that's how lightweight we are. And you can see here, this Raspberry Pi is only running at 14% and it has 5 cameras on it. So pretty lightweight. We can do 128 cameras on a single core of a Core i3 processor. That is how lightweight we are. So we don't need these big, expensive custom machines like other competitors of ours do that need Xeon drives and Xeon CPUs and SAS drives and GPUs. We are very lightweight, which makes us more cost effective for the total solution because you can use off-the-shelf normal hardware rather than custom spec hardware. Same for the client computer, right? Because of the adaptive scaling, you don't need this big Alienware machine to view it and make it look good. You can just use a normal computer and get access to everything. So in terms of installing the server, it installs on ARM devices like Raspberry Pis and Jetson Nanos and things. It installs on anything Windows based, anything Linux Ubuntu based. The client software installs on Linux Ubuntu, installs on Windows, and it installs on Mac OS X as well. There's also then an iOS app, Android app, and then a web interface for anything that wasn't covered by that, right? So we can even get to the web interface to view cameras and stuff. And that same Hive architecture, even though I'm only connected to the IP of one of the systems, I still get all three of my servers come to me. So yeah, it's pretty versatile in terms of what can be installed on and how lightweight it runs. So yeah, that's a lot of the features in a nutshell. There's a lot more than that. You know, one-click updates to update your entire system globally. User management with LDAP integration for Active Directory and lots of other things inside the system. It's just a case of having enough time to try and show them all. So in the consciousness of time, as I said, I'll wrap it up here. But for any more information that would like to be shared or like to be known, just drop us an email. My email address is jcox@networkoptics.com. Feel free to drop me an email. Or you can go to our website, networkoptics.com, and fill in one of the forms there to get in touch with your local sales representative. Cool, thank you for watching if you made it all the way to the end, and hopefully we'll hear from you.